huge. If out of those 82 million customer bases, only let's assume that just 50% of them even decide to make a call in a day. Just 50% of them make a call in a day. That is 40 million entry. And let's say those 40%, 50% that make call in a day, maybe they generate maybe 10 outgoing, 5 outgoing calls and 5 incoming calls, making 10 calls. So imagine how much rows that they are going to be generating on their system. That is huge. So big data is characterized by large volume. Then number two is big data is also characterized by variety. It comes in varieties. If you have had Equi has had interaction with the financial services sector. So let's assume that maybe it's First Bank, for instance. And for First Bank runs a core banking system that is called Finaco. On Finaco, you have different kinds of data. You have CRM data on Finaco. You have the daily balance on Finaco. You have end of the month balance on Finaco. You have daily transaction of Finaco. You have card transactions on Finaco. You have ATM transaction on Finaco. So those are varieties of data, and that is the way big data comes. It comes in different kind of varieties. It can be data, it can be information about transaction, it can be information about channels, it can be information about accounts, it can be information about customers, and so on and so forth. Then also, big data is characterized by the third V, and the third V is called velocity. And when we say velocity, it means that the rate of change of that data is either real time or near real time. Big data would keep changing every now and then. So I've had some guys talk about big data in the area of human resources. I don't think there is HR people don't have big data. I don't know the kind of big data that the HR people are going to be managing. But when it comes to velocity, that is the rate of change. So it keeps changing. So for instance, if you have a tax now, and the tax is that how many customers on MTN network, 82 million customer base, how many customer today made a call that is more than 5 minutes? Between the time that you start writing the query and the time you click submit, the number would have changed. So if you run it, and if you run it and say, oh, okay, then you want to run it again after another 1 minute. In another 1 minute, the data would have changed again, the number of customers who have made up to 5 minute calls in a day. So that is like change. The data keeps changing. Or if you're asked to go and mine sentiments from Twitter, let's say maybe a day before yesterday when Mr. Donald Trump was handing over to Mr. Joe Biden, and you are supposed to like analyze the sentiment. What are people saying about that handover process? And you need to go to Twitter to mine the data, or to go to some social media pages to mine the data. From the point that you are trying to extract all of that data, if you give another 1 minute, there would have been another additional information that would have been added to the same platform where you're extracting the data from. So big data changes, and the rate of change of big data, it's real time or nearly real time. Then you also have so essentially, those are the main characteristics of big data. Now, big data can be structured, or it can also be unstructured. So the MTN example that I gave is a classical example of structured data. MTN will have information about all the 84 million customers that are recharging. We have information about the customers that are calling, when they are calling, who they are calling, which base station are they using to call, which customer are they calling, at what time of the day are they calling, and so on and so forth. They will have all of those type of information. It's going to be structured. It's going to be presented in form of rows and columns. It's quantitative in nature, and you can perform all different kinds of operation on that kind of data. Then there is another kind of data that is unstructured, like the data that you extract from Twitter, the Twitter example that I gave, it's not going to be structured. It's to a very large extent going to be unstructured. So, and notwithstanding, it does not mean that it cannot be analyzed, but it's unstructured. It's just going to come in form of text, and people are saying different things. They are using different emoticons. It's not exactly properly structured in any particular any particular format. Um, but that's the characteristics, or those are the characteristics of big data. So wherever you see big data, it's going to be voluminous, it's going to have varieties, the rate of change is going to be either real time or near real time, and it's either going to be structured or or structured kind of data. Now, the big data itself, there are many advantages that you can put big data into. I think throughout this week, I've been having conversation with different companies on how they can leverage the data that they generate. And one way that I try to introduce how we can add value to businesses is many organizations can tell, they can say, oh, we are wasting money. So you can tell when you are wasting money. A lot of people know that, okay, I'm wasting money because maybe I bought some product and I'm not selling the product and it's getting spoiled in the warehouse. You can say, oh, I'm wasting money. People say you are wasting time. You can tell something that should be done maybe in one day is taking 3 days to be done. It's like you are wasting time. You hear people say that. But people have never come to realize, including organizations, that you can actually waste another resource, and that resource is data. You have data, you store them in servers, but nobody goes to that server to go and generate insight from that data, look out for patterns and relationship within that data set in order to be able to drive performance in the business. So data also, just like time and money can be wasted, data can also be wasted. So some of the advantages of the application of big data or analyzing big data could be, it can help you to understand, have a better understanding of your customers. You know, it can give you significant understanding of your customers. So this afternoon, I had a lot of discussion with the clients about customer churn. So they are losing their customer, and they are losing their customer big time every day. They are losing a whole lot of customer. So is there a way we can understand the behavior that is driving that customer churn? You know, and what are those type of interventions that can be implemented? Big data can help you to answer some of those questions. Big data can help, or application of big data can help you to cut down costs. Some of those, I'll give you one. I try to make it practical. I put it in context. So with some of those use cases we have implemented that has to do with cutting down costs was a project that we did with one of the banks. And the project was that each time you insert your ATM card on another bank's ATM machine, you incur a cost, and that cost is called ROU cost. You know, so it's a significant cost where, for instance, you have a bank is paying up to like 5 billion naira to settle other banks in a calendar year. And then due to COVID-19, they have now encouraged more people to go and use the ATM channels. And at some point in the year 2020, banks were shut down because there was a national lockdown. The ROU cost for some of those banks grew exponentially. It grew exponentially. It became a very big problem. And if that does not balance with the revenue, which is also called NOU, the corresponding revenue they generate from other bank customers using their channel, it means that their ATM operation is going to be running them into a loss. So the mandate we had with that client was to help them to cut the ROU cost. It's simply the concept of big data that we're able to use to achieve that to achieve that task. Then big data can also help you to increase your operating margin. margin is more or less the profit that you make from your business. So when you compare cost with revenue, it can help you to boost your revenue. It can help you to cut down your costs. I also have several examples of where we have applied big data to help a company to boost margin. And I'll give you another example. So in telco, so this is telco example now. So in telco, if you terminate your call, so each time you call another customer on another network, there's what is called interconnect cost. So that interconnect cost at the end of the day, if MTN is calling Airtel, MTN will need to pay some money to Airtel for that call that is terminated on Airtel. So at the end of the day, if MTN is making 10 naira from that call, MTN would have to share part of that 10 naira with Airtel. So the implication of that is that each time MTN customer is calling another operator on another network, is going to be impacting the margin because you have to settle, MTN has to settle the other guy at the other end. So it impacts the margin. So the question is that what big data solutions can we implement in order to be able to optimize the customer base and the call behavioral pattern of the customers in order to be able to minimize the revenue loss. That was another project that we did, and the insights were very, very interesting. So the fact that this training, what it does to you is that it opens you up to practical applications of big data. It's not just some theoretical kind of training, and that is why it's very important that you get your training kit. Your training kit is going to help you to be able to practice some of those things we are going to be talking about. There are different ways that big data can be applied. There is no limit to the applications of big data. I've given telco example, I've given banking example. So even within the bank, I can give like maybe 5 different examples in the bank. In telco, I can give uncountable use cases in telco space. You have the multi-SIMing model where a telco wants to determine whether any of its customer is using multiple SIM. If it's using multiple SIM, then it want to rank the customer whether it's a primary multi-SIM user, maybe it's a primary user, or maybe it's a secondary user. If it's a primary user or a secondary user, it's going to help the operator to drive what type of intervention it could put in order to be able to derive more value from that kind of customer. Those are use cases that require a huge application of big data. Also in procurement, in product development, in manufacturing, in distribution, in marketing, in setting the price for your products. You need to consult data in setting the price for your product, so big data is also applicable in price management. What else? There is merchandising, in sales, in store operation, in human resources. You can apply big data in human resources, but I've not seen any particular kind of use case where big data can actually be applied in HR, because HR actually does not generate so much data that can be classified as voluminous, or that can be classified as voluminous, or that has so much variety, or that has so much velocity like that. So I'm still looking for a very good use case where HR, where big data can be applied in terms of HR. But there is no field where you currently work where big data is not applicable. There is no field where big data is not applicable. So I'll pause a bit so that I can allow you to ask me questions. I will allow you to ask me questions. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me. If you don't have any question, then I can gladly proceed with the different sources of big data. If there's any question, please raise up your hand and ask your question. I'll call you. If you have any question, just raise up your hand and I'll ask. You can also type your question in the chat area if in case you don't want to verbally state your question. Ekwi says that she has no question. So I'm also assuming that nobody has a question. But if you have a question, please just signify, unmute yourself, and then ask your question. So in terms of sources of big data, generally there are three major classification of sources of big data. And to a large extent, you probably interact with the whole three. You interact with the whole three. So one is social data. Data from Facebook, data from LinkedIn, data from Twitter. Those are social data. Nairaland is another place people generate all kinds of data. If you want to know the sentiment, if you want to do sentiment analysis, for instance, based on maybe EndSARS, for instance, of course you can extract huge data sets from Twitter. You can also extract a lot of data from a platform like Nairaland. You know, it provides insight for consumer behavior, for consumer sentiment, and it's that source of data is called social data. You have machine data, and the phone is like a machine. A lot of us don't know. Our mobile phone communicates with other machines. So, like, before you can terminate a call, before you can receive a call or make a call, your mobile phone will have to communicate with a base station. You are not even aware of this communication, but it's some kind of data that is generated when mobile phone is communicating with the base station. And this is the concept that people that have developed tracking system that is embedded inside cars. That is the concept that they have. They leverage, they leverage that communication between the tracking device and the base stations that are within the environment. So they can tell that, okay, a vehicle is moving from Third Mainland Bridge, is moving towards Iyanoworo, and is moving towards Ketu, and it's moving towards Lagos Ibadan Expressway. There's a device, and that device is communicating with other devices. You are probably not the one that is triggering it, but there's some kind of communication that is taking place. And then there are some applications of this. I was in a store in Abuja. I think you can try it out. Miniso is a Japanese mall. That it's a global Japanese mall, and you have some in Lagos, you have some in Lekki. There are some tags that they attach to. There is a tag that they attach to their product. So when you want to take that product out of the mall without paying any of the cashier, it communicates with some devices that they have mounted at the entrance. So immediately it's just going to beep. So in case you want to play a fast one on them, and you try to take maybe 5 products, and you try to pay for 4, and the 5th one you try to drop it inside your bag without paying. By the time you approach the exit, there will be a communication. Data will be generated between the device, between the item you have taken and the device that they have mounted at the entrance. So all of that type of data can be analyzed in a way that can help them to also beef up their security system. Those are data sets that are generated by machine data. So you have the social data, you have the machine data, and then you also have the transactional data. Each time you go and deposit money at the bank, each time you go and buy something on Jumia.com or Konga.com, each time you recharge your line or you make a phone call, you generate data, and all of those data, they are stored away on systems of this organization that provide the platform for you. So those type of data are called transactional data sets. Please feel free at any point in time to unmute yourself to ask me any question. At any point in time, you can ask me any question. So the question is that um, why is big data now a big deal? Is it that we've not been generating data before now? So that leads us into the evolution of big data itself, or the evolution of big data technologies. So in the early 60s, the problem they were trying to solve in the early 60s was the problem of velocity and the how system can assimilate data in real time. That was the problem that they wanted to solve in the early 60s. And that led to the development of databases, what you have today as a database management system, some of them relational database management system, some of them hierarchical database management system, some of them are just file systems to store databases, but there was need to manage data in a real-time basis, and that was the problem in the early 60s. Then in the 90s, the problem changed a little bit. It was no longer real time, how to capture data in real time. There was a whole lot of sophistication that they were able to achieve between the 60s and the 90s. But in the 90s, the type of data they were now generating were unstructured kind of data. You had documents, you had videos, you have pictures, you have emails, and they also needed to manage this type of data set. So data were coming in an unstructured way. So this led to the creation of another store for data, which is called NoSQL store for data. We are going to be seeing some adaptation of that later on as we proceed in this particular course. But today, the challenge today is volume. So in the 60s, it was velocity. In the 90s, it was variety. Today is the volume. So because there are a lot of sophisticated devices, the mobile phone I have with me, it's more powerful than the computer. It's more powerful than the computer that the fastest computer that they had in the 90s. That's a mobile phone that is just in my hand. So the question is that how do you manage voluminous data? So that led to the development of new type of storage systems and new type of solutions to manage this type of data set. That's what we call today big data platforms. And at some point, we are going to be talking about Hadoop technology, and we're also going to be talking about technologies and the concepts for analyzing those type of big data sets. I want to pause a bit again, then drink some water, then I will proceed. Please, if you have any question, feel free to ask me. I'll be glad to take your question. Okay, thanks a lot. I'm back and I cannot see any question in the chat area. So I just simply proceed. So with the evolution of this big data, companies are now able to to streamline their existing databases. And I'll tell you about a project that was part of in MTN. So I can mention some of those names. It's for academic purpose. It's just for learning purpose. In 2017, yes, 2017, MTN contracted a company that is called Legal Data. Legal Data. So Legal Data was founded by some of the guys that worked in Yahoo. They worked in Yahoo. So and Yahoo is part of Yahoo, Google are those companies that actually revolutionize the big data technology. And before they now release it into the market under an open source license. So some other entities now decide to form businesses around those big data technologies. So one of them is Legal Data. So they decide to deploy a big data platform in MTN, which is, when I say big data, that is Hadoop platform. Before then, MTN was running on Oracle database. But at some point, Oracle no longer had capacity to be able to support the kind of operation that MTN needed to run. So you have like a 80 million customer base. This 80 million customer base, they are generating data session, they are generating voice call, they are recharging, some of them are receiving calls, some of them are making calls, some of them are generating mobile financial services kind of transaction. So at the end of the day, it becomes so huge that the typical SQL Oracle database that we are very, very conversant with was no longer capable of adequately efficiently, let me say, efficiently supporting. It does not mean you cannot support it, but maybe before now, if they run a query, the query could just run in maybe 3 minutes. But 3 minutes, for those that know, 3 minutes is a very long time, because you just want to click enter and you want to get your result almost immediately. But when you click enter, you now have to wait for 3 minutes for you to get your result. So MTN brainstormed that what can we do? So they had to employ Legal Data to come and set up a big data infrastructure for them. So MTN is one of those companies in Nigeria that is running the Hadoop big data infrastructure. But from our understanding, a lot more companies, a lot more CIOs are also beginning to adopt that technology and adopt that implementation. And I think at Octave Analytics, we also help businesses to also deploy this. We also help businesses to deploy this now. With the evolution of big data, there are some kind of insights that before you cannot generate. So you just know that the data is there. Like from Twitter now, if you want to know, okay, what is the sentiment of people on Twitter, how do you want to mine that data? It's just so unstructured. So how exactly do you want to go about it? But with the new technology that you have today, there is a breakthrough in that area. So you can generate the type of insight that you cannot generate from unstructured kind of data set. And it now opens businesses up to be able to explore and exploit new kind of opportunities. And also, the big data platform itself, it's faster, it's a whole lot faster. And in a big data environment, you cannot hear things like my data has crashed. I can no longer access the data. It does not mean that it does not happen. It does not mean that the chance of that happening is not there. But with the architecture of big data, there are a lot of replica of the same data across the same disk, across the same data, across different data blocks and across different disks and across different servers and across different clusters in a way that the data availability is 99.9% guaranteed. And then it's a whole lot faster. In 2018, EcoBank implemented big data platform for its ATM operation. So if ATM would dispense money to you in maybe 3.5 minutes, with UBA, did I say UBA? With EcoBank, you can get that for half of that time, and that is significant for those that are aware of ATM operations. So at times you have long customers queuing up to get money. So why the ATM is telling you wait while your transaction is processing, is because of the limitation of the backend system that, or the data system that is providing the data to the ATM terminal. So with the implementation of Hadoop or a big data platform in EcoBank, they were able to significantly reduce that ATM response time or ATM waiting time by more than 50%. So those are use cases for the application of big data. So there is a knowledge check here, but the answer is it's there. The data-driven approach to decision making is not confined to only collecting data, but it's also how the data collected is being used in making crucial decisions. This approach is mainly based on, of course, not data utilization, not intuition, not experience, but data analysis, data and its analysis. Those are the approaches that drive how the data that you collected is being converted into decision making. Okay, I want to pause a bit and I want to ask you any question for me before I proceed. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that is not clear? Is it too simple that everybody is understanding what I'm saying? Or you've not gotten to that part where you think questions need to be answered? Of course, this is actually introduction, so we should get to that part in the next 2 or 3 lectures. So in terms of there's another classification for sources of big data beyond the transactional sources, the social media sources or the social sources, and the machine sources. Big data can actually be sourced from within your organization or externally from outside the organization. So for external sources would be things like the internet. You want to create a product, you want to know what is that thing that is driving people crazy, and that is going to inform the type of product that you intend to create for your organization. So external data from the internet can help you to get that. There are in telco, there is a data that is generated by GSMA. The GSMA data, they provide data like device stack. So a telco can know the type of device that you are using. In fact, the telco can tell whether you have swapped your device, whether you have swapped your SIM from one device to the other. So they can tell that at almost real-time basis. But that data itself is not sourced internally by the telco. They have to source the device stack database from GSMA, and it's GSMA that aggregates all the type of devices that you have in the whole world and create different feeds on all of those devices, like what type of device, what type of device, who is the make, what is the brand, what type of data capability does the device have, how many SIM slots does the device have, etc., etc. The telcos don't have that. They have to source that externally, and that can contribute significantly into the operation of a telecom business. Then there is also the internal data, your ERP application for human resource management, or your ERP application for maybe vendor management, for staff management, for invoicing, for procurement and stuff like that, or maybe a CRM application. So for a bank like a First Bank, for instance, let me use Access Bank. A bank like Access Bank, for instance, there's a platform. The core banking system is called FlexCube. So the FlexCube is an internal system that tracks all the transactions that customers are generating within that particular entity. It's internal to Access Bank. But if Access Bank wants to know the sentiment of customers towards it, what are customers saying about it, at any point in time, Access Bank will have to look outside. We'll have to like revert to the internet or probably conduct some kind of survey to be able to assess its customer perception index. So different types of big data. Big data can be structured or unstructured. And you also have big data can also be semi-structured. So a typical example of structured data would be the transactional data that you find in UBA Bank or in Access Bank. Unstructured kind of data would be the type of data you find on Twitter. You know, Mr. Donald Trump has about 75 million followers on Twitter. 75 million followers, if all of them go to Twitter and they just send two messages, you know, message one, message two, that is 550 million messages. By the time you aggregate all of this, there are insights. You can tell what are people's perception about a particular topic. That is unstructured data, and it's usually very big. It's usually bigger than the structured data, and it's usually more difficult to analyze. But of course, there are tools that can facilitate the analysis of unstructured data. And then you have semi-structured data. The type of data you have on your WhatsApp is semi-structured. And I'll tell you why. So on WhatsApp, you can analyze WhatsApp in a way that you can tell the number that sent you a message, you can tell who sent the message, you can tell who sent the message. You are the recipient. So who sent you a message or who you sent message to, the time stamp the message was sent, and the content of that message. So maybe the content is unstructured because the content may be unstructured, but every other thing like the recipient, the receiver, the time it was sent, those ones are structured. So when you combine the two together, you have what you call semi-structured data. Also in the bank, there are also some type of data sets that are semi-structured in the bank. And when you send narration, when you do like ATM transaction or internet banking transaction, and you put a narration, money for DSTV or money for cable TV, or an app just says DSTV. It is not structured. The narration itself, the comment that you put in that feed online is not structured. So, but it can be analyzed, despite the fact that it's not structured. It can be analyzed in a way that it will help the bank to know the spend pattern of its customers. So that led to a concept of spend analytics, something that banks are very much interested in. They want to know what exactly our customers spending their monies on. And it is this unstructured narration in the core banking system that we have to leverage to be able to tell what their customers are spending money on. So I've given you a whole lot of use cases on big data application, especially for the field where we are very strong. At. So I've talked about structured data. So this is example of structured data, the type of data that you put in your Excel that comes in rows and columns, relational databases, flat files. They are structured data, the type of data set. Then you have the unstructured data, the text that you mine from the internet, pictures that you extract from pictures that are loaded on Facebook, videos on Facebook. They are unstructured type of data sets. And mobile data such as text messages on WhatsApp, or location data like your geo coordinates. So at times some people say, where are you? Okay, send me your location, for instance. So that location information it's unstructured. It's unstructured, although it can be converted into longitude and latitude, but it keeps changing. If it changes in another 1 minute, how do you store it away? But it's unstructured kind of data. You also have web logs. You also have logs or documents, emails. They are also some form of unstructured data sets. The the unstructured data are usually they are a lot more difficult to manage compared to the structured data sets. And, it's because of the fact that it's not structured. It's not structured. So it requires special skills, it requires special tools, and some of those tools are more expensive than the type of tools that are used to analyze or to manage the structured counterparts. And then on unstructured data, they consume significant amount of time to analyze. Like if you want to analyze unstructured data, it requires significant amount of time. It's time intensive, it's resource intensive as well in order to be able to manage unstructured data. But however, in this course, we are going to be discussing possible ways of analyzing unstructured data. We are going to be seeing some of those concepts of analyzing unstructured data. Now, in terms of challenges, the biggest challenge with unstructured data is the rate of growth of that unstructured data. The rate of change, the growth rate of unstructured data is some of the biggest challenges that the industry is facing. You know, as I said, you just imagine how people like Twitter, how they are managing their data. If you want to access maybe feed from Twitter will tell you that they cannot guarantee you anything more than 7 days. They cannot guarantee you anything more than 7 days, and it's because the data is changing per second. It's changing per second. So at some point they cannot even archive things beyond. At some point they have to archive some things away. They cannot make them just readily available just like that. Then you also have infrastructure. So for big data or for unstructured data, the infrastructure requirement is very huge. You need to keep adding more resources and more you need to keep adding more hardware or more cloud resources in order to be able to manage unstructured data. Then there is issue around data governance and data policy. In fact, this is a PhD topic for some people. If you've been following the news, there's a lady that was sacked from Google. I think sometime in December, and it's because of one of the articles that she developed around the data governance and data policy for big data, for unstructured data analysis. You know, he made some comment about the ethical approach of Google to some type of unstructured data, and that led to Google terminating her appointment. But data governance and data policy is a very big issue, which can even lead to a PhD topic, because there are a lot of things that you see. There are a lot of things that you see. Things like issues like fake news. You know, people take a real data, a real comment, and they mix their own to it, and then they present it back, and you don't even know whether it's correct or whether it's not correct, because maybe 80% of that content it's actually correct and original, but there's a 20% that is incorrect, and those 20% that's incorrect is significant. So the issue around policy and governance around big data, it's a big issue. It's a big issue today. You know, then in data integration, how you integrate into a big data platform. So it's another issue. So can we integrate? You know, a bank, for instance, can build a USSD system, and then they make that USSD system to integrate with a core banking application. 10 years ago, there was no USSD transaction. You know, those times, 10 years ago, we were not doing USSD transaction, but today it's now one of the major channels that is driving transaction in the bank. But the integration is very, very easy. Just build the system and then it's handshake. But how many people are able to achieve integrating the core banking system to maybe Facebook, or core banking system to Twitter. So when somebody is tweeting, they can tell that this is the customer that is tweeting. There was a project with GT Bank in 2018. What they wanted to do, they said that they have about 2 million they had about 6 million customers on Facebook. They wanted to know, can we translate those 6 million customers on Facebook to their account number in the bank? Till today, it has not been achieved till today. And it's part of the integration issue that you have with unstructured big data platform. Then you have the velocity, the variety issue. You have data compliance and regulation issue. You also have visualization issue. Visualization is the least because, of course, they've been able to develop systems that are able to visualize some of those big data. But yeah, but this is the order of challenges with of big data. Okay, thank you very much. So this is supposed to be a 2-hour class, but because it's the introductory class, I would want to pause. I want to pause here. I don't want to add so much to what you are going to be learning today. Tomorrow from 12 to 2 p.m. we are going to be continuing. If you need to reach out to Daniel to get your training kit across to you, because at some point it's going to be very very interactive, and when it becomes interactive without your training kit, it might be difficult for you to be able to follow what we are going to be teaching in the class. So get Daniel to send your training kit to you. When you I think on that platform where you register, you have provided your address. So that is the address that Daniel is going to be asking the delivery guy to send your training kits to. So these are the training kits. It comes in this particular pack, and then it comes in this pack, and the pack is Doctor, sorry, your textbook. I've found the pack, and yeah, so it's right in this pack. This way. So this is how you receive it. Then there's a virtual learning environment that you will need to download from. There's a virtual learning environment that you need to download. Let me quickly look at that. Maybe I think it's somewhere here. So once you are granted, where is it again? Here is it. Yes. So where is this stuff? Windows. Okay. So I want to share my screen again. Yes. So so there's a virtual learning environment that is downloadable. Where is it? Yeah. So yeah. So on this platform, so on the platform you have access to this training material. Once you are granted access to this, you have access to this training material. Then you also have access to where is it? Chapters. Let me go to the dashboard. Yeah. So you have access to these slides that I'm using for the class. You have access to recorded sessions. You have access to videos that have been recorded. And why those videos were recorded is you can watch the video before coming to class. So it keeps you a step ahead of the class. So when you come to the class, you are just reinforcing what you have learned, and you can ask relevant questions. Then on this platform, there's a virtual learning environment. This is about I think it's about 8 gigabytes. Yeah. So we have downloaded it. So you just need to bring your PC. You just need to bring your PC to copy the 8 gigabyte virtual learning environment and set it on your PC. So here is it. Here is the virtual learning environment. It's a lab environment for the analytics, big data analytics class. There is another one for the big data engineering class too. So this is where you download it from. About 8 gigabytes. but we've downloaded it here, so you can bring your PC to have a copy of it. And then what else do I need to tell you? So the class would hold 5 to, I actually thought it's going to be 6 to 8 p.m. because at times by 5 p.m. some people are still commuting, they are still trying to get to their destination. So we give some gap. We allow people to close from work by 5 p.m. Then by 6 o'clock, then they can join the class. So we might need to shift that a little bit to to 6 to 8 p.m. instead of 5 to 7 p.m. I need to speak to the administrator before we can do that. Then also, then tomorrow, Saturdays is going to be 12 to 2 p.m. So please be punctual, be punctual, and that is it. Please feel free to ask me your question if you have any question. I'll be glad to take your question. If there are no questions, I'll be glad to see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Okay, in case of no question, thank you for joining the class. I hope to see you. Olivia, do you have a question? Please feel free to ask.
No, I don't have it. I don't have any questions.
Okay, so thank you everyone. So hope to see you. Hope to see you tomorrow. Hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.